it's no longer in news
Yeah.
that our current economic environment is hostile to businesses, especially small and medium-scale enterprises. Okay. It is, in real terms, it is very, very hostile. And then that also accounts for why interest rate is almost unbearable for the small and medium-scale enterprises. And then also you talk about security, you talk about ease of doing the business, you talk about haulage, no thanks to increase in the price of fuel and HU, and a whole lot of other factors that has really made it very, very difficult for businesses to seamlessly thrive in Nigeria. Okay. Again, government policy is also another thing, lack of consistency in government policy, because sometimes when this president or governor is in power, he or she rise with certain policy. You can't really be sure that there's a system in place to consolidate some of those policies in terms of business friendliness. And then also talking about the Dangote Refinery Saga and everything that has happened in the past few weeks or few days, you will find out that that is a very strong testament to the fact that what we have been saying all along is not a fluke, it is true. But also, I have some reservation concerning the Dangote refinery and all the Dangote stuff. One of my reservations is that the thing is that it will be okay. Some people can really say the federal government has not done well. The federal government is not supporting Dangote and all of that. But also from the side of the federal government, how much can the federal government tell us about how that refinery was built? Remember in 2013, Dangote, it was projected that that refinery will cost about $9 billion. And Dangote was able to source for fund about $3.3 billion. And then in the statement, project statement, it was that Dangote will provide $3 billion out of the $9 billion, and the rest will come from commercialization and all of that. And then eventually there were hiccups all through to 2015 because the proposed site was eventually changed to Lekki. And then that actually hampered the start, the commencement of the project. And then we continued and continued and continued like that until 2017, when the issue of the venue, the location was settled, and they were to start the business. And then again, from 2013 to 2017 is about 4 or 5 years. A lot had happened to our economy. No thanks to the government of President Muhammadu Buhari, who actually plundered the economy, and then the dollar started nosediving, and the naira started nosediving, and then obviously the project, the initial projection in terms of finance of 9 billion rose above that to almost about 15 billion thereabout dollars. And then the project eventually commenced. I think that should be in 2018. Then when the project commenced, the dollar continued also to nosedive and all of that, and eventually it was hit on 19 billion US dollars. And then I think from there, the Dangote group was supposed to provide about 9 billion or 8 billion thereabout, and then other commercialism, maybe the federal government has about 20%,
people that have stakes,
other people that have stakes. So some of the money we actually also borrowed. And then all of these things happened. Nigerians and those involved were not carried along about the nitty-gritties of this business. Everything was shredded in secrecy, in darkness. It was about interest. it was about who is going to benefit. It's about who and how. How such project is supposed to be a project that was supposed to be done with high level of transparency
for everybody to see.
For everybody, because these are projects that will transcend administrations, which is what has happened right now. How did Dangote get the dollars he was provided with in cheap rates? Who provided those dollars in cheap rate? What were the conditions given?
Why others were getting dollars at higher rates?
You understand? Okay. For Dangote to get amount of dollar and all of that. So all of these things are the things questions that were not answered.
Okay.
How come the government refinery that weren't working? Some of them were to cost as small as 6 billion naira or thereabout. How come nobody was paying attention from the government system to those refineries so that they will start to work? So that Dangote Refinery, when it comes to full operation, will only be an addition.
Additional. So making it like 5 we have in
Nigeria. Will only be an addition. How come nobody paid attention to all of those things? But that is a question for another.
Okay, let me go to Jimmy. Now, Jimmy, can you hear me? So I've actually laid the conversation here with my guest here in the studio. You are an economist. You are not just an economist. You are a lecturer as well in a higher institution of learning. And when we talk about the Nigerian economy on a daily basis, we will always tie it along the side of the book work, which is what you are really into, the academic side. Now, as an academician that you are, from the academic side, do you really think that the policies of the government are favorable for businesses to thrive in the country as it stands?
All right, thank you very much for the question. I appreciate the way the discussion has started. Well, to be honest with you, we've not seen demonstration from the side of the government that resilience to enable businesses to thrive in Nigeria. Rather, what we have seen is insensitivity on the side of the government that has led to closure of so many businesses, especially the SMEs, where we have had over 5 million of SMEs closing down within 1-2 years. And that cannot that cannot mean that government has done anything to encourage businesses at all. Well, the truth is, I think all the policies of the federal government, especially in the past 3-5 years, we've actually not seen ending to say, yes, this is where the government is trying to encourage businesses. Otherwise, a serious government, a serious federal government should at this time be thinking about enabling some policies that will rather encourage the introduction of new businesses, strengthening the already existing ones, especially businesses that have to do that have by way of a multiplier affect the growth, the positive growth of other ones. Example, the type you are discussing now, that of the Dangote Refinery, whether we like it or not, the petroleum sector in Nigeria has been a problem for donkey years. It has, many people have said that the growth of Nigeria, the growth of the economy, the growth of the Nigerian businesses, the growth of the standard of living of an average Nigerian, all of them have been on the petroleum sector. That if we're able to get that right, so many issues in Nigeria will be corrected. And that is not far from it's not a truth too far to reach, because Nigeria being a country that has not demonstrated so much in terms of production, the oil sector is kind of a gift which the nature has given to us to clearly get things as quickly as possible. That is why many people have expected that if we actually get that sector right, so many issues would have been solved. But unfortunately, if we still cannot at this time recognize the areas of our strength, if we still cannot recognize the area of our comparative advantage, which seems more to the oil sector, it means we as a country are still playing. It means that our federal government is still yet to identify what the problems actually are. The truth is that we are in a country where many businesses are attempting to start, still at their infancy, they die, either for multiple taxations or for high cost of operations and all that. Just this year, we talked about hiking the electricity tariff. This year, we talk about the cost of petroleum per liter, how it has gone tripled. So many other things. What else affects businesses? What affects businesses? If not for electricity they pay for, if not for transportation of their goods and services. These are the basic things. If the government could actually get those things right, it means we will be encouraging businesses to grow. At the same time, nobody is talking about granting tax holidays to businesses. Businesses still pay multiple taxations everywhere. Last week, we heard the motion that was moved in the Senate that tried to motivate the federal government to heighten taxation in Nigeria, especially in financial institutions and all that. They forgot also to realize that whatever you impose on the financial institutions in Nigeria, there's something we call tax burden, the incidence of taxation. They forget that the incidence of taxation will find its way to smaller businesses that are not going to be able to cope. So when whatever we impose on financial institutions, just as they were proposing in the Senate last week, the incidence will eventually find its way on businesses. And that is why businesses are dying because government has not actually demonstrated the will to help businesses to thrive in Nigeria. We shouldn't. If we had a government that actually wants to stand for the growth of businesses, we're not supposed to be having issues where concerning Dangote at this time because we know what happened. We know how many years since the federal government failed to enable one of the moribund refineries to work, even for complete 8 years, we couldn't get anything from the administration of Muhammadu Buhari. And when the current president took over office, he also made a whole lot of promises up till now. Nothing has happened. None of those refineries can work. And now we had efforts that was effort motivated by private individuals, even though we understand that there were political interests underneath. But whether that or not, I think that shouldn't even be the issue. The issue should be what can make the refinery work. What can enable Nigeria to refine their oil at home? What will enable us to generate foreign reserves when we are able to refine our product at home? Whether Dangote is a friend to this, a friend to that, whether the interest aligns with the selfish interest of Mr. This or Mr. That, that shouldn't be the matter. The issue should be this: if we are able to use Dangote's refinery to do this, now that it is working, then we will be able to generate foreign reserve. We'll be able to strengthen the naira against the dollar because that is where the main issues have been. Then the exchange rate, all of them, everything, then the inflation is going to drop. So if we cannot start thinking about it, it means we are not ready to put national interest on top of the table. What we have is like my brother that is on studio with you just mentioned that so many interests have built into this process. And those interests are not spoken to Nigerians. Nobody knows. So at this
Okay.
point, when Nigerians are beginning to have sign of we thinking of what is going to happen that is going to favor the entire country, those
Okay.
interests are silently peaking. And that is what we are having. It means that the federal government, if the federal government cannot stand up against all odds, against all personal interests, to stand up to say, we must succeed in this.
But Jimmy, before I come back to you again, let me take a thought from Benedict here in the studio before I come back to you. Now, Ben, a lot of persons have been saying they are saboteurs, trying not to make the Dangote refinery work. And so many persons have come out to say the head of the agency who alleged that the guy is producing substandard diesel, that's Farouk Ahmed of the NMDPRO, should be suspended or even sacked. We saw the motion on the floor of the Green Chambers by the member representing Oredo Federal Constituency, Engineer Sosayawi. He was the one who moved that motion that he should be sacked. Now, Dangote said, bring your scientists from the NMDPRA. Why I bring my own scientists? Let them check the PPM or however they grade it in the petroleum sector and see if whether I'm producing substandard. Do you think that there are some forces that has been working against our 4 refineries, also working against this very refinery not to work?
Well, that is not far from the truth, because Nigeria is built in a way that personal interest is always higher than the
people's interest.
The people's interest. And then that is where we are.
Okay.
And let me say here, I think some weeks back here I was here to talk about
Dangote, like three
yeah,
weeks ago thereabouts.
Yeah, that Dangote about his interest.
And it was part of the economic team that was constituted recently by the president.
Being a capitalist, they will only advise the president how it will suit them.
Favor them.
And all of that. That is business for you. And then what is happening right now, and for the first time ever that I'm aware of, that Dangote is crying out like this. It means that some things are going on right within the government system.
Before now? Or
presently? Right now.
Okay.
Yeah, as much as I criticize the policies of this government, but for Dangote to be crying out like this, it means that they are getting him in a way that he needs to be responsible enough to compete.
Okay.
Because Dangote coming out right now to cry out about how they are fighting the refinery. It's not because he likes Nigerians.
But he's a Nigerian.
He is a Nigerian, but it's not because he is seeking for the common good of Nigeria per se.
Now, probably he might be.
It is because of his business interests.
He's a businessman.
He is a businessman. Yeah. He's a capitalist.
Okay.
And as a capitalist, capitalists are always profit-driven.
Oriented and profit-driven.
Okay. And so for the first time, Dangote is crying out like this.
Yeah.
For the first time, Dangote, the heat is getting to him. For the first time, the government is saying, we are not ready to monopolize this system.
Okay.
For the first time, the government is saying, everybody that comes must be ready to compete.
But the same government who is saying they are not ready to monopolize the system, they have 4 refineries and none is working. They keep giving us dates every year. On a yearly basis, you hear January they'll shift it to March they'll shift it to April. An individual has been able to do what the government couldn't do.
Competition evolves around capitalists. Are you getting it?
Okay.
So if you are talking about competition, it's not about the government.
All right.
It is about individual business people whose interests are there, who are also ready to compete in the same business domain. It is about giving all of them a level playing ground
to run,
where everybody have access to the same policy.
But he seems to be the only one that have a private refinery right now in Nigeria.
Right now in Nigeria, how many people are in the pipeline seeking for license?
For the modular refineries and all that?
Or whether you call it modular refinery. See, whether you like it or not, the only way the citizens will benefit is when there is healthy competition.
Okay.
When you monopolize a system, especially a system that is driven by capitalists, of course now socialism is no longer a trend.
A trend, yeah, that's
right
true.
now.
It's capitalism that is driving the force
all over the world. And what makes capitalism very, very sweet is governments regulating the systems. Like, for example, Google for example, and Microsoft.
Microsoft.
They are the biggest in that world
in that world of business,
internet business.
and all that.
But look at how the US government regulates it to make sure that they don't overpower all others to distribute the economic strength downstream to other web designers, to other internet setup and all of that.
So obviously we cannot say it's the failure on the part of government before now to regulate.
Definitely a failure. Dangote has been, mainly been the golden cow of the government. And then when you say Dangote is the richest man in Africa, what actually do you do to become the richest man?
But he has the biggest business.
Now look at how economy works. Okay. If you want to create a rich economy, of course there is always going to be an standout performer in the economy in terms of business. It happens in every country. Okay. But also, you will begin to see a lot of other business that are coming from, you understand, that are also behind doing very, very well, because that is how the economy in its entirety becomes robust. But what we see in Nigeria is that the thing is all being driven by one man who is the richest man in Africa. And then when you begin to look at other richest people in Africa, you find out that among the 10 richest people in Africa, how many Nigerians are there after Dangote?
Okay, those so let's meet with Jimmy now. Let's look at it from another angle. Now, Jimmy, do you feel, as an economist and someone in the educational sector that you are, that this whole issue right now is going to be an impediment to foreign investors coming into Nigeria? Because if an indigenous investor is having this problem with the government, what will now be the mindset of the foreign investors who the government run to on a daily basis? Today they are traveling to US, tomorrow they are going to China, next tomorrow they are going to UK. They want to go and bring in investors. The local one we have here, the individual is having a challenge with the same government who is going out there to source for investors. And you mentioned FDI. How would this also be a problem to our FDI as well, as an economist that you are? Let's have your take on that.
All right, thank you very much, my brother. It is I think to allow the issue being experienced by the young Dangote Refinery to be announced to the public space is one major setback that the country is going to experience, which is going to affect our overall economy. The truth is, irrespective of, I don't know the perception certain politicians have, but I feel that it is not, the government is not going the right way about whatever issue they are pursued. It could be right, may not be too wrong for anybody to say that Dangote has emerged as one big monopolist in Nigeria. But again, that is not the way to follow it up. Persons like Dangote, we exist in a space that is empty. If the government does not create vacuum, they don't take it over. So the thing is, if since 2017-18, that the new refinery has been developing, it is not only Dangote, for God's sake, even some politicians that we know had interest. So since the whole matter started, a reasonable federal government that that is afraid of monopoly should look for ways to also distribute the same license to one or two other persons, giants, who they were encouraged by all means to do the same thing. And that is not going to even be so much of an expectation after we already know that the government was incapable to maintain any of its existing refineries. The government has not made any attempt to privatize any of the refineries. The government has not called for bidders to come out for Taco Refinery, Warri Refinery, Kaduna Refinery. The government has not done so that what they are actually talking about is to help more participants to come on the table and struggle with Dangote. So I think the monopoly is not good. The best form of system is a perfect competition, and that can be achieved through very reasonable implementation of policy. For instance, if you cannot say to deprive you of this, that, because you don't want monopoly, the finally has to start, because when it starts, first of all, my own interest is the oil sector in Nigeria will first of all experience such a stage. We cannot start one day that we will not have 20 private refineries one day. One person will be at the front. And that is what Dangote has done. If he has done so, what the federal government should have been doing is looking for ways to encourage him to first stand. The truth is this: whether Dangote has his own interest, and it is his own personal interest that are driving him, what do you expect from a businessman that has invested? So there is nowhere in the world a person set out to do business go to seek national interest. It is selfish interest that drives a businessman. But the only thing is this: while seeking that selfish interest, the system, the policies are initiated to ensure that the way you seek that selfish interest, that your personal interest, are now sharpened in such a way that while you are achieving your interest, the country is achieving its own interest, and the citizens are getting their own interest. And that is how it should be. So the federal government should, first of all, whether Dangote gets his own personal interest or not, whether he starts as a monopolist or not, it will not stop our foreign reserves to be building. Once we start doing refining oil here, it will not stop the naira rate to go stronger than dollar, because all we have been spending to finance the refining of oil abroad is like Nigeria importing oil. So by the time we stop doing that, it is going to strengthen. If our naira goes stronger than as it is now, if what do you call our foreign reserve goes stronger, then at least we'll start from there. Before the government starts to say, okay, we want to start encouraging participants to go into the process right now. In the airline industry, what happened recently, the federal government has tried to work with. If it was not available, who would have been using that space? The federal government saw a strong company that was ready to do something, and there's no other company in Nigeria now that is doing international flights. But the federal government said, okay, let us assist, and the company is doing very well. What happened? You see what has now happened to the cost of life, especially from Nigeria to the London route. So it will always have overall effect, which is positive. But to continue it, we can now say, okay, yes, we're going to bring in action to mitigate the monopolistic tendencies that will come with it. Then the government cannot start doing that. And again, who says that federal government cannot actually maintain the refineries and make them work? The NNPC is not for private individuals. It's federal government thing. The only thing is that the government now commercializes it. So we can have Warri Refinery, we can have Port Harcourt Refinery commercialized. They're working. They have their own governing body that the government will take into place. So what is happening, I do not think it is going to be a good signal. Going back to your question, it is going to be a good signal to foreign investors. The truth is that all the crime, all the visits, all the money we pay, the different governors, all of that, traveling abroad, they want to woo foreign investors. All of those things will be waste of funds, waste of effort if we continue to do things like this. Even before this whole matter came up,
get your closing thought. I'll come back to you for your
I
closing
was
thought.
already aware that in the past 3 months, that
Okay.
I think, over 6, 7 major companies ran away from Nigeria. This has not happened, and this has been happening now. So it means that the effect is going to be involved on
all right, Jimmy. I will come back to you for your closing thoughts. But let me hear from Ben here in the studio. Now, you've been longing to say something, but let me just tie this to a question and what you wanted to say. He said he's ready to put off the refinery and give to NNPCL to manage. Now, the question is, NNPCL cannot manage refinery 1. That's Port Harcourt 1. They couldn't manage Port Harcourt 2. They couldn't manage Warri and Kaduna. Do you think they can manage this if he eventually put it up for sale to the NNPCL or to the government of the day?
The first thing is that Dangote will not sell the refinery. Okay. That statement came out of a lot of heat. A lot of heat coming from, because this is not something he's used to.
Absolutely.
Dangote is not used to this kind
of this kind of
environment. This kind of pressure coming from government. Yeah. Like I said earlier, he's always the golden cow of the federal government. Okay. So that is it. Now, I heard Mr. Jimmy talking about the fact that we need to protect Dangote. I absolutely agree with that. Okay. I absolutely agree with that. All right. As a major player in our business, in our capitalist cycle in Nigeria, at this time, our system and our government must protect our own. And this time that we are crying for indigenous establishment production, and we are trying to be a producing nation. And Dangote has actually led that at the forefront. Okay. He must be, as a matter of fact, be protected at all costs. Okay. That's one thing. And also, because all other people, because if you are seeking for international investors, you need to look at
those that are at home.
You also need to look at international perception. Yeah. How others perceive you. And their perception stems from how you treat those that are already on ground, especially those that are your own. If you can treat your own like this, how about us that are strangers coming and we are coming with our money to invest? If there is no rule of law, if there is no respect for business interests and all of that, so that I have established. Okay. And then again, what I'm trying to say is that as much as we should support Dangote like I have established, I'm also saying that wealth should be decentralized. Okay. That is how a system grows, an economy grows. Okay. You see, like Jimmy was speaking as an economist and as a classroom lecturer. Yeah. We are in the market. Okay. You understand? That was I had to blend the both of you. I can understand where he is speaking, where Jimmy is speaking from. In terms of the GDP, when Dangote, there is foreign reserve and the GDP. That's how economists speak. Okay. But the national GDP is of no effect if the small businesses if there is no decentralized business system in a nation. Absolutely. You understand? The GDP is because you have read as an economist that you are talking about GDP. But for the market men and the market women, they are talking about how did these things get to us? How does it affect us in everyday life? Okay. How does the standard of living improves on a daily basis? If whatever you are saying is because you are read, you are talking about the GDP. So what I'm trying to say is decentralizing the system. Where if you have the richest man in Africa as Nigerians, also among the top 10, you should also have about 5 Nigerians also being in top 10 in Africa. That's what is obtainable in US. Right. When you have wealth being decentralized. Okay, so let me get your final thought, Jimmy, in less than 1 minute, because we have to go in the next couple of minutes. What's your final take on this? What should the government do in order to make this refinery work? What should be your final advice, both to the government and both to the individual who is piloting this affair? Quickly, in less than 1 minute, Jimmy.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. The thing is, I understand what is happening, and there are so many interests that are unspoken. We I want to expect that the federal government to be able to come up to say, yes, let us first use Dangote to achieve what we want. Then
Okay.
from there, other things can now start to,
Follow.
other policies can be
Okay.
initiated to regulate for that, to internalize
All right.
exactly what we want.
Okay, thank you very much, Jimmy Oko. I really appreciate your time on the show this afternoon. Just in 30 seconds, what will be your own advice for both government and the individual?
Encourage the local producers.
Okay.
We want to produce.
All right.
So you must do everything to encourage the local producers.
Okay.
And again, when you are trying to give licenses, it should be based on transparency.
Transparency.
And the business capitalists should come together to defend each other.
Okay.
When Airpeace owner was
having
out
issues
the other
and all that.
Dangote and Otodola,
They
were all
out,
mute because they are not
they didn't even say anything.
Now it has gotten to them, and they are not. So these are the things. There should be cooperation and transparency because we want to get it
Okay,
right.
thank you very much, Benedict Ochago, and thank you very much, Jimmy Oko, for being a part of the show this beautiful afternoon. That's how far we can go, but we'll continue to look how everything plays out in the next couple of days and see if we're still going to get the PMS the Dangote Refinery has promised. It's been a great time being with you on the show this afternoon, and we've had so much robust discussion. We always say, God bless Nigeria, no matter what's happening. I'm Lawrence Osifo saying, see you again. Bye for now.